Welcome back to the second segment of INN's headlines and beyond for April 2012. We finished out looking at how the race for 2012, the presidential race for 2012, is shaping up, and what we're going to do next is we're going to take an issue and show how issues that are not don't look initially like to be political issues can morph and become a political issue. And Obama, this is what I said yesterday. I was wondering about the Martin Zimmerman case, whether or not the Martin Zimmerman case would become a political issue in the 2012 election. Well, it actually has come, and I'll show you how this actually fits in. The clips I'm going to play now, I'm going to play two clips. These are clips from basically from yesterday's broadcast. We're going to play that.
Mark Garagos, as a defense attorney, what was your reaction to this very public withdrawal?
Oh my God! I'm sitting here, Anderson, and this is just a train wreck of proportions. I don't even know where to begin.
Explain.
Well, first of all, I don't understand the people invoking their ethical obligations and then going out and blasting the client, which is what they just did. This may be the height of chutzpah for criminal defense lawyers to say, we haven't talked to our clients for 2 days, so therefore we're withdrawing. By the way, there's no court case filed, so there's nothing to withdraw from, number one. Number two, who are you to be diagnosing your client's mental state when you say you haven't talked to him? This is completely inexplicable, and I thought I was watching a Saturday Night Live skit.
Is it unusual to you, Mark, that they were never officially retained by Mr. Zimmerman? I mean, every time I've hired attorneys, I've gotten a document pretty quickly to sign saying, or even a real estate agent, a document pretty quickly to sign saying, I am retaining you.
Well, here in California, you got Jose on the line. You can ask Jose. Here in California, if it's a retention for over $1,000, the state bar rule is it must be in writing, signed by the client. To be out there doing the media tour and bouncing from place to place, and I'm telling you, my tongue is bleeding because I was biting my tongue as I was watching this because I don't like to second guess other lawyers who are in the eye of the storm. But this, frankly, is one of the most outrageous things I've ever witnessed. I mean, this is really beyond the pale for two lawyers to go out there and say we haven't contacted him in 2 days and we felt it was our ethical responsibility to go on the air right now and start blasting him and saying it may be a potential defense that the guy's got a mental problem, and when we're trying to say that he was in reasonable fear for his life when he had shot somebody. This is just the height of absurdity. I don't even know where to begin on this, Anderson. It's ridiculous.
Jose Baez, what do you make of this?
Well, Anderson, first, you can't have Mark on before me because he just stole every single word I was about to say.
Okay.
I think I too thought I was watching a Saturday Night Live skit. I think it's unbelievable that you would get on television and talk about your client's mental state. Now, this is what you have here. You have, as an attorney, you have an ethical obligation not only to not attorney-client communications, but attorney-client confidences. Things you learn in the process of representing a client are considered confidential. So any conversations they had or non-conversations they had with George Zimmerman are completely protected. And the holder of this privilege is George Zimmerman, not the attorneys. Unfortunately, I've seen in Central Florida this type of a resignation from a public resignation from another attorney who I'd rather not name, and I too think it's reprehensible, unbelievable.
Sonny,
Jose, what do they have in the water down there in Florida? I don't understand what they're doing. This is just absolutely the worst thing I think I can remember seeing any lawyers do in regards to their client. I thought that some of the previous interviews were train wrecks. Those things were toy cars compared to what this is.
Well, actually, Jose, let me just ask you about the Florida law. How quickly are you supposed to sign a document retaining counsel?
Now, a retainer agreement is not required.
Okay.
Unlike in other states, it is strongly suggested, and certainly it is something that any competent lawyer would do, would be immediately get a retainer agreement, especially if you're putting
you're a former prosecutor. What's your take on it?
Well, Anderson, for once, Mark Garagos and I agree, right? And I agree with Jose Baez as well. I've never seen anything like this. And so, Mark, you have me on this one. But I think as a prosecutor, you come, you're looking at a case, and now I'm worried. I'm worried if I am inclined to bring charges. Is George Zimmerman a flight risk? Can I get to him? If I have to issue an arrest warrant, now maybe my investigation is going a little more quickly. Maybe now I'm going to bring charges a little more quickly. And so this really harms George Zimmerman in the eyes of a prosecutor looking at this case and deciding whether or not to charge.
Mark,
and who are they going to call? They're going to call these two lawyers now as witnesses as to his mental state, and which, as Jose aptly described, is something that's completely protected by the privilege, and they just go out on national TV and say this guy is unhinged?
Let me begin with the family here, who you've been very closely in touch with, obviously. Were they watching today's news conference, news conference given on behalf of George Zimmerman's attorneys? What was their reaction?
Yes, ma'am. As the lead attorney for the parents of Trayvon Martin and with our other lawyers, we all watched the press conference. And as I told Roland earlier, it was just surprising to us. And after the press conference, his parents turned to me and said, they don't know where this guy is at. And that is the issue. They don't know where the killer of Trayvon Martin is at. He is unaccounted for, and they are really concerned about that because they do worry about him being a flight risk. They worry about if he's ever going to be brought to justice for killing their son.
We hear from Sanford Police. They say they do know where George Zimmerman is, even though he's apparently not exactly in contact with anyone else. Do they buy that, and are they still fearful that despite the fact that police know where he is, he could still flee?
Well, with this sporadic conduct on behalf of George Zimmerman, we think he's a flight risk. We found out today he's not in the state of Florida. The lawyers say they don't think he will leave the country, but again, they haven't met him. As we were telling Roland Martin, we're really concerned about this because how does this impact the prosecution going forward? If he is charges of bought, is he going to face the charges, or is he going to flee?
Wait, Mr. Crump,
it's a real troubling matter.
Am I hearing you correctly that you are hearing that he is not in Florida? Is that what you just said?
Yes, we heard that he's not in the state of Florida.
Where are you getting that from?
Well, no, we picked that up from the press conference. They said they know where he's at, but they know where they think he is, but they're not sure.
Okay, so remember these two clips now. This is the important part. Remember these two clips, how, they're talking about George Zimmerman, the lawyers that were properly retained, went out and said all they said about this. Now, take a look, and we're going to play this in the context of what Bill O'Reilly had said about what's going on with the election. And this is the clip that I played before. This clip of Bill O'Reilly is actually from last week. It's about a week old now.
Trayvon Martin's parents have campaigned long and hard for their son.
Today we filed an information charging George Zimmerman with murder in the second degree. A capias has been issued for his arrest.
When Florida's special prosecutor announced that George Zimmerman had been arrested and charged, their sense of relief was obvious. Trayvon Martin's mother had heartfelt words for those that have stood beside her family.
We simply wanted an arrest. We wanted nothing more, nothing less. We just wanted an arrest, and we got it. And I say thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Secondly, I just want to speak from my heart to your heart, because a heart has no color. It's not black, it's not white, it's red. And I want to say thank you from my heart to your heart.
George Zimmerman is now in custody, but has always maintained his innocence. The 28-year-old claims he acted in self-defense when he shot and killed the unarmed black teenager, but his newly appointed lawyer says he's concerned about his client getting a fair trial.
There's a lot of information, and of course there's a lot of groundswell of emotions on all sides of the issue. The statute and whether or not it's appropriate, Trayvon Martin's untimely death, Mr. Zimmerman. So there's a lot of issues and there's a lot of emotions, and we need to calm this down. It needs to be tried in a courtroom, which is the only place it's supposed to be tried.
Trayvon Martin's death has sparked protests across North America, with many claiming the case has highlighted racism throughout the U.S. justice system. It's thought that George Zimmerman will plead not guilty to the charges. There is now a long and arduous legal road ahead. It may be some time before George Zimmerman actually appears before a jury, but for Trayvon Martin's parents, they're now closer to the justice they fought so long and hard for. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Sanford, Florida.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Howard Dean on the attack. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Just call me Miss Cleo, psychic to the stars. Just minutes after I told you last night that the Democratic Party's strategy to re-elect President Obama will be to attack Mitt Romney and the Republican Party. Presto! A few minutes later, Howard Dean shows up on MSNBC and says this. The Republican Party is gay bashing, Muslim bashing, Latino bashing, immigrant bashing, women bashing every day. And so their young people are just not going to vote for Romney because they're not going to, they think insurance should actually pay for birth control. They don't, their friends are gay, Muslim, Latino, and so forth and so on. They're sick of this stuff. Now, I want to thank Governor Dean for making me an oracle. It was nice of him to do it. So what we have here is the Democrats trying to put together a coalition of the aggrieved. Millions of Americans who feel they're not getting what they deserve. And of course, President Obama is here to help them. Now, that analysis is not a slap at the president. Unlike some of you, I don't think he's a bad guy. But I do think he's misguided philosophically, and because of that, is doing damage to the country's economic infrastructure. But I don't see him as Dr. Evil. In fact, I have never, ever seen Mr. Obama with a cat.
As you know, every diabolical scheme that I've hatched has been thwarted by Austin Powers.
Now seriously, here's how the campaign is going to unfold. The coalition of the aggrieved will be stoked up by guys like Howard Dean and a variety of other liberal bomb throwers. They will put forth that America is not a fair country and that the only person who can make it fair is President Obama. The bomb throwers will then slime Mitt Romney in every way possible. Now, on the other side, conservatives and Republicans will make a mistake if they sink into that swamp. At this point, everybody knows President Obama. You don't have to demonize the man. You either like him or you don't. But everybody does not know how much danger there is in uncontrolled federal spending. That is what Mitt Romney and the Republicans have to make crystal clear. How a $16 trillion debt that continues to rise will affect every American. If they can get that point across, everybody will be aggrieved, not just a few selected minorities. So there you have it, right from the mouth of an oracle. And that's the memo. Now to the top.
Tell me your reaction, first of all, to the charges this afternoon.
Well, again, I'm a bit surprised that she was charging with second degree, but she knows the evidence. I don't yet, so it's sort of tough for me to comment on what I haven't seen yet. We'll just have to wait until the process works itself through.
When you say you're surprised by that charge, why?
Well, because, again, she knows the evidence, but that type of crime sort of suggests that he did something truly unlawful, and I think the evidence so far suggests that there was at least question and controversy over what happened, but quite honestly, we really do need to wait to see what the evidence tells us.
Have you had much time to really look over the case at this point, or are you really that new to it at this juncture?
No, sir, I truly am that new to it. I've seen only what has been shown in the media. I have had no other contact with the case, so it's really difficult for me to speak at all authoritatively about the evidence, and wouldn't be proper anyway.
I assume you've had a chat with Mr. Zimmerman without getting into any of the attorney-client privilege. Can you give us a sense of his mood?
Well, I think he's troubled by the fact that the state decided to charge him, but we're certainly going to prepare a defense, and I think that understanding what he has in front of him, he's doing okay.
Would you say at this point that the key issue here is a question of self-defense? Because certainly that's what we've been led to believe so far.
It seems that way to me from everything that I've seen from the media. Certainly that's going to be one facet of the defense, but I just have no idea yet.
What is the next step right now, Mr. O'Mara? When do you go to court, or what is the next thing that we should be looking for?
There will be a bond motion hopefully by tomorrow, when a judge will review at least some of the facts of the case and decide how and under what conditions to release Mr. Zimmerman.
And then what would you expect after that? I mean, it has to go one way or the other, but then you prepare for the next phase, which I assume is at some point him entering a plea.
Well, he'll enter a plea of not guilty like any criminal defendant would do at this stage of the proceedings, and then we go through a round of discovery, which is where we actually find out about the case, which gives us a lot more information than I have now.
And do you have any idea what kind of time schedule will be on for all of that? You obviously have a very steep learning curve at this point.
Absolutely, but I intend to get caught up to speed pretty quickly. The state is under an obligation to start getting into discovery no less than after the next 15 days. I anticipate the prosecutor and I will be having conversations about getting that information to me as soon as possible, and we'll work through it.
Are you concerned at all about the degree of public attention this case has had, in particular in areas like Sanford, where there have been marches in the street and rallies and people calling for justice?
Yes, any high-profile case adds a lot of extra elements to it, a lot of extra problems to it. Whether or not the case can be tried in Seminole County is one, and the fact that it gets so much focus and so much attention, people tend to overanalyze and microanalyze so that every decision is suggested to have significance when it may not. It's just part of a lengthy process that we're just now getting started.
After weeks of tension, the Neighborhood Watch volunteer who shot 17-year-old unarmed Trayvon Martin has been arrested. 28-year-old George Zimmerman turned himself in and was taken into custody.
Today, we filed an information charging George Zimmerman with murder in the second degree.
And Special Prosecutor Angela Corey announcing the second-degree murder charges would not tell us how they came to the conclusion. If he does get convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison.
The way it ended, with Trayvon being shot.
In an exclusive interview on the day Zimmerman had been charged with murder, Trayvon Martin's parents spoke to the Associated Press.
If I had an opportunity to talk to George Zimmerman, I would probably give him an opportunity to apologize. I would probably ask him if there was another way that he could have settled the confrontation that he had with Trayvon.
A capias has been issued for his arrest. With the filing of that information and the issue...
And the shooting touched off marches, a series of furious debates over race, self-defense, and gun control. Trayvon's father wants answers.
We will continue to walk by faith. We will continue to hold hands on this journey. White, black, Hispanic, Latino. We will continue to walk. We will march and march and march until the right thing is done.
God, right now we ask you to be with the Martin family right now, God. Not only the Martin family, but the Zimmerman family.
Residents of Sanford packed this church to watch the charges on live television. There was no shortage of opinion. George Zimmerman is expected in court on Wednesday, at which point he could request bail. And as far as Zimmerman's plea of guilty or not,
Yes, as 99.9% of criminal defense attorneys charge criminal defendants charged with a crime. You plead not guilty presently. That keeps the process moving forward.
this case that has sent sociological tremors across America has only just begun. Robert Ray, Associated Press, Sanford, Florida.
Do you think Angela Corey has new information based on her investigation? I do. She must, because she must have evidence of what happened during those minutes after he gets off the phone with his girlfriend and when the gunshots are fired. This is a housing development. People may have seen things. There may be security cameras. We don't know. And she has had the access to all this evidence. And I just think we need to reserve judgment about this case because we know a good deal, but we don't know all that she knows. Law enforcement on the ground is telling us that George Zimmerman is about to arrive at the Sanford jail, and that's why we're showing you that live shot. Sonny, you also believe there's new evidence?
Oh, I completely agree. I'm surprised at the second-degree murder charge, especially because you've got to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. And as you mentioned, I mean, there's a chunk of time with conflicting evidence. And so that tells me she has some clarity in terms of that conflicting evidence. There must be something new.
Mark, we have a digital dashboard question from Facebook. Tammy asks, if you were the defense attorney, would you encourage Mr. Zimmerman to take the stand?
Oh, there's no way to answer that question. In fact, most trials, I don't even make that decision until the prosecution is rested. It's something you go in. It's the toughest decision you make as a defense lawyer, and you generally regret it the minute you do it if you put the client on. And it's just no way to answer it at this point. But I will I'll be in the echo chamber here. I agree that there's got to be more evidence than what we know publicly. But
forensic evidence alone, we know nothing about that.
How far away the gun was.
Right.
A point about the stand your ground. If he wants to use that law, he's got to say that he feared, that he was in fear. That's going to be pretty hard to do without his testimony.
I agree.
So I think if this case goes to trial, it's very likely.
In his statement.
Yeah, but that's not much. I mean,
unless they put in his statement.
Yeah, yes, sure, that you could do that, but to persuade a jury. The guy claiming I was in fear for my life is pretty, is the most effective evidence you probably have.
If you take a step back,
and the defense can't do it. The defense can't put in the statement.
Well, right, I agree.
Only the
defense
prosecution
can't
can
put
admit
in the
it. So I don't, right,
Yeah,
you know that, Mark.
think,
And I don't see the prosecution doing it. I don't see the prosecutor putting that on. I see the prosecutor holding that statement back. Make him take the stand.
Mark Aragos,
you think they'll put it on?
Well, except I think that the prosecution may put the statement on because I think part of this, what's driving this, is if you believe the reports, the homicide detective on the scene did not believe the statement, and they may put up that statement and then start punching holes into it to show, kind of force him into taking the stand, if you will.
And the other thing I think we need to point out is, with stand your ground, they get to bring that up pre-trial. They get to have a stand your ground hearing, and so we may very well hear Zimmerman's point of view. We may very well see him on the witness stand before trial, and that
the economy, and that's what women overwhelmingly say they really care about right now.
All right, so you can see that what's happened now is that with the Zimmerman case in court, we can go back to the O'Reilly clip now, and this is the appropriate thing to do, is to go back to the O'Reilly clip and listen to what he says. And now you can hear, and the whole thing has to do with context, how things are done in context.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Howard Dean on the attack. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Just call me Miss Cleo, psychic to the stars. Just minutes after I told you last night that the Democratic Party's strategy to re-elect President Obama will be to attack Mitt Romney and the Republican Party. Presto! A few minutes later, Howard Dean shows up on MSNBC and says this.
The Republican Party is gay bashing, Muslim bashing, Latino bashing, immigrant bashing, women bashing every day. And so their young people are just not going to vote for Romney because they think insurance should actually pay for birth control. They don't. Their friends are gay, Muslim, Latino, and so forth and so on. They're sick of this stuff.
Now, I want to thank Governor Dean for making me an oracle. It was nice of him to do it. So what we have here is the Democrats trying to put together a coalition of the aggrieved. Millions of Americans who feel they're not getting what they deserve. And of course, President Obama is here to help them. Now, that analysis is not a slap at the president. Unlike some of you, I don't think he's a bad guy. But I do think he's misguided philosophically, and because of that, is doing damage to the country's economic infrastructure. But I don't see him as Dr. Evil. In fact, I have never, ever seen Mr. Obama with a cat.
As you know, every diabolical scheme that I've hatched has been thwarted by Austin Powers.
Now, seriously, here's how the campaign's going to unfold. The coalition of the aggrieved will be stoked up by guys like Howard Dean and a variety of other liberal bomb throwers. They will put forth that America is not a fair country and that the only person who can make it fair is President Obama. The bomb throwers will then slime Mitt Romney in every way possible. Now, on the other side, conservatives and Republicans will make a mistake if they sink into that swamp.
All right, so that's basically what's going on, and you can see now that what's happened with the tragedy of the Trayvon Martin case. Uh, Tragedy aside, the politicians who gathered around it now has proven O'Reilly right once again. Is that now this case, the Martin Zimmerman case, which is racially politically charged, as you heard from Al Jazeera, and and along with its social issues, Obama now has he's got a cause now. He's got something. They've got something to carry them through the election. This is now the Trayvon Martin case is now an election issue, and this is how politics plays out across not only the United States but also across the world. Politics is a dirty game, and it often overlooks and doesn't care about the people it holds up as the cause. Now, this is not to diminish the case at all, and the personal tragedy surrounding this. This is what this is showing, is that these people who believe in political causes don't actually care about the person and the people involved in the case. They care about their cause. The cause is paramount. And this is sort of, if you're an independent and you want to sort of think about things, you need to sort of think of how all the political sides line up. You got to pull the politics out of it and say, okay, how does this affect me? And in many cases, you just sort of have to let the case go. Because unless you want to politicize the case and continually use this case and this issue for your own political purposes, then the case is not important to you. It's important if you want to look at how justice works and you want to eventually put in briefs and files to sort of change how the courts work. That's one thing. But if you're not using it as a case study on how to make the justice system better, then all it is politics. So I'll leave you with this now, and I'll say once again, Kalopaska, Kalianastasi for the Greeks and the Eastern Christians who are celebrating Passover and the resurrection on Sunday. I will be back with the iNN's headline news and beyond on Monday. I'm leaving the foreign affairs section out this time because we have a ceasefire that seems to be holding in Syria. So I'll leave that for the weekend, and I'll work out I'm going to work out some of the bugs that were that's still in the video system, and come back on Monday with something much better. And as I said, we'll go further into the conspiracy theories. We'll find out who is some of the targets of the conspiracy theory, and then we'll start picking at these things and seeing whether or not these conspiracy theories are actually true. And I encourage you over the weekend, as you got your time, sit down and watch Danny Organ's Surprise. We've got the 5th episode now up on here. I encourage you to sit down and take a look at this. All right, take it easy. Have a good weekend. Klianasasi Klopaska.